consumers, we are no longer okay with some half-assed prototype or MVP, right? Like we want something that actually feels good, that runs well, that works, and at least truly fixes some of the problems that we are facing.
Hey everybody, this is Harshit. I'm a growth marketer at JustPay, which is a W23 company, and we are with Jerry here. Firstly, thank you so much for being on this podcast. Why don't you just give a short introduction and then we'll just dive in.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Jerry. I'm the founder and CEO of a startup called Unrepped. What we do is we help people who are unrepresented, who are trying to get on the home ownership ladder, achieve their goals. And I started off kind of coming from a real estate background, so I kind of understand the pain points that a lot of people had, right? In a modern age with the internet, a lot of people feel like the knowledge of home buying is not necessarily, that difficult, but what they're really confused and feel challenged by is the actual like step-by-step process of what comes next. How do you do things, et cetera, et cetera. And we're trying to help people get through that process and to manage that and make sure that they have good access to knowledge, as well as if they choose to use representation, to get good representation. I think a lot of tools today kind of talk about how they want to automate a lot of human processes. We don't really believe that. What we at Unwrap believe is, I think these AI tools and automation tools really help individuals become more powerful, and it gives you more context and knowledge, but it's not really meant to, say, okay, we're going to get rid of, everyone or something through one class. It's supposed to help everybody who's interested in getting on this very expensive journey that's very meaningful and very rewarding, to do so at a lower cost and to get better knowledge.
Your concept about AI, right? Because right now we just saw that Sama and his team just released
Yes.
the newest GPT-4o image model, and everyone is really over here, right? So that is something super cool. So your point about AI being an assistant and enabling the person to do what they can but much better. I mean, I love doing podcasts. I mean, I love connecting with people, and now I'm using all these AI tools. I'm able to use all these creative tools to create all these creatives, which I couldn't have done previously. I needed a designer before. Now I can just do it by myself. So Jerry, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree completely. Look, funnily enough, my fiance is a huge fan of Studio Ghibli, and I'm sure you've seen the trend on Twitter. People are like, "Oh my God, I can now have all of my photos, come in the Studio Ghibli format." And I thought it was super interesting because I'm someone who wasn't really exposed to anime and this type of art before. But what I see now is, you know, as someone who wasn't exposed to it before and seeing the proliferation of these Studio Ghibli style images, this actually, I think, it makes this form of art more lasting, right? It brings it to the masses, to people like me who never would have dug into, any sort of niches really. Like, to be honest, my taste is quite mainstream and vanilla, but now I'm being exposed to all these things because now people have the ability to kind of work with a certain style. And I think in the AI age, what you'll see is that people who are able to leverage technology effectively, just like people who are able to use Instagram or TikTok or create Discord communities, Mr. Beast and YouTube, like people who understand and know how to use these tools will be able to do even more things with them, right? I think we're truly in an age where meritocracy is going to shine because ultimately, if you know how to use the tools, you will simply do better work. And I think it's very prevalent for Unrep because, we've talked to a lot of users and potential customers and things like that. And a lot of people told us, oh, and this is why we don't really put a lot of AI into our own branding, because a lot of, for something as expensive as buying a home, right? It's a huge purchase. It's not just the actual cost or the process. It's also the feeling of getting to own your
Ownership.
your own home for the first time. And a lot of people don't really want to be like human hands off, right? What they want is really a really, really capable human or themselves to be able to get that information that they're looking for and to make sure that the process works smoothly and that it doesn't have any hiccups, because everyone knows that in this business, there are hiccups all the time. And so I kind of have that same philosophy towards the rest of AI too, in that It's really meant to empower individuals who want to do things. And I think you're starting to see, with the GPT-4o models, like people really understanding, wow, I can't draw. I don't have any mementos, but now I can create things that I would never be able to think about before. And I think that's what's really powerful.
Just last week, I was able to build an in-house custom workflow for Just Paid in-house, right? So I'm able to leverage my growth skills and AI skills. But my question here is, everyone's got these skills. Everyone's, have these tools, right? So what happens when they don't have distribution? Because everyone's pushing out tools, but at the end, you really need to be on Twitter. You really need to have that kind of distribution for people to know that your tool even exists. So what is that? So we know what's the solution there. I mean, as a founder, how do you look at things here?
People who go deeper than what's required, who scratch more than just what's on the surface to accomplish tasks, are now more capable than ever and are more in demand than ever. Can you take a real problem that we've identified that people are having, that it's such a big pain point that they're willing to pay money to get it fixed, solved? Can you go find these problems and then implement them and build them? It's also about, if you're going to distribute a tool, right? What is the minimum barrier or minimum quality to get something launched and released? Because as consumers, we are no longer okay with some half-assed prototype or MVP, right? Like, we want something that actually feels good, that runs well, that works, and at least truly fixes some of the problems that we are facing. So I think the barrier to entry to like actually successfully starting a startup has risen, but the barrier to entry to beginning the process of starting your own projects and startups have gotten a lot lower. And the difference between starting and launching, that is really the amount of time and effort that you put into understanding the technology, to talking to your users and to your customers, to understanding what the market solutions are existing and how you exist within that ecosystem, right? Or, you talked about Cursor, but right now people also use Windsurf. Plenty of people use GitHub Copilot, and then you have these no-code tools like, let's say, a no-code tool like Lovable or Bolt or things of that nature. It just gives you more options in deciding how to start and how to launch and getting feedback from there. And I wouldn't be surprised to see more startups launching from no-code tools at the very start.
So, Jerry, I wanted to know your thoughts on community and events, right? Because you actually hosted a lot of events as well. You hosted an event in a salon under Unwrap House. So, I really want to know about that. Like, what do you think? Why do you think hosting events is such an important thing and building community? Because, like we spoke, anyone can build products, but not everyone can build that tight knit community.
So the industry that we're operating in really is in trust, right? So the product that we're selling is not knowledge or information because that's accessible anywhere. With AI, honestly, most people can do a lot of this work themselves if they choose to do so. But what people are really missing nowadays is trust. They don't know. There's so many sources of information that they don't know where they should be looking. And part of doing events and building community, I think, is like putting your face out there, being transparent and open with people, letting people know what you're about. I'm a huge fan of open source. We're trying to figure out, what products can we build for open source that do that, because at the very least, on the informational level, we are very much with an open source background. The knowledge that we're giving is literally stuff that have gatekept by professionals for a very long time in the real estate space that we really want to open up and provide to consumers. Things that real estate agents who've been working for a very long time that they don't really want to share because, for them, that's their leisure blood, right? Their bloodline. That's how they make money. So I think part of doing events, and the good agents will do this too. Often you will go into the community, you will host things that will help normal people, whether it's with, immigration, whether it's with jobs, maybe it's with helping find electricians or contractors, or even sometimes looking for good school districts, nannies, things like that. In this industry, in real estate especially, it's a very much of a handshake business. It's about who you know and why you trust them. There's a reason why if you go to parks benches, if you go to parks, you see the benches, you see the billboards, all of these places have a lot of, real estate agents putting their face on there because they want you to know who they are. They want you to know, hey, I'm not scared to show who I am, and let's work together, right? Here's who you should be calling. And so I think in this age of digitalized distribution where anyone can start doing something, it's more important than ever to build that trust by hosting events and try to answer questions as transparently and directly as possible, or not some sort of a pre-show thing.
I really want to, dive deeper also into your finance background as well, right? So what was your university like? What was your college, right? Because you were at Babson, and how did that actually shape your approach to founding unrep.co? So that's something I'd love to know.
No, for sure. So, funnily enough, when I went to school, started undergrad in 2011, and I graduated in 2015. And if you recall, that's essentially at the trough of when things started to pick back up in most economic activity, right? Because in 2008 we had the great financial crisis. And so, what I actually studied in school was finance, and I specifically dug in onto the financial crisis and how it came to be, learning about mortgage securities, learning about derivatives, credit default swaps, and things like that. And a big part of what caused the housing crisis was a lack of lending standards, where essentially there were many different ways by really smart people to try to game the rules in a way that you will never face the consequences. And we know that even across, decades later, right? Very few people who were the architects, or at least they were the instigators of what ended up creating, and creating so many foreclosures and for people to be kicked out of their homes. There's nothing that's happened to them. And so for me, when I studied finance, I really want to understand the plumbing of how things worked. I want to learn about repo markets. I want to learn about why do we need securitization? Why are first-time homebuyer mortgages more valuable and more important than many other types? Why do we have a 30-year fixed rate mortgage in the US? Because in most other countries, that doesn't exist, right? If you're a bank, can you imagine trying to take on a risk for betting on what interest will be for 30 years, right? That's an unbelievable length of time. 30 years ago was 1990, and we didn't have internet the way we did today. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have Amazon. So a big part of my education was really understanding the financial plumbing of how these systems worked. And to be honest, I had no intentions of founding a startup in home ownership and real estate or anything else. It was just something that I found inherently fascinating of, okay, well, I was old enough to understand that something bad had happened to the economy. I was young enough to not really understand what happened overall. And so that's kind of what I really studied and learned when I was at Babson. And it's kind of funny how things kind of come full circle. And now I'm using a lot of the knowledge and trying to figure out how do you build an incentive system where in this industry, everybody is incentivized to do one thing or another. How do you incentivize people to do the right thing instead of the wrong thing? And I think in today's market with all these AI tools and digital tools, it is a lot easier to give the consumer direct access to information that helps them rather than aggregators for a bank. So for example, I was testing some of these mortgage like NerdWallet and Bankrate and some of these sites. I put in my actual personal details. Yeah. Well, I put in my actual personal details to see, okay, well, what is the environment like if I wanted to shop around for mortgages? I've been getting phone calls nonstop for the last 4 days of different banks who've been calling, hey, you have a great credit profile. Where are you in your mortgage? All I want to know is what rates am I eligible for, right? Like as a consumer, I shouldn't be receiving calls left and right and be interrupted in my day just for me to get information that every single bank already has in their system that somebody behind some desk is going to find out for me. Why isn't that information public? Why can't we create personalized quotes that are available to everyone? Let consumers shop, right? We all know that the best way to negotiate deals is to have multiple options. So, what we really want to do is to create an environment where consumers are empowered and capable of actually shopping around and make it cheaper and more accessible to access the whole breadth of homeownership services, whether it's on the financing, whether it's on representation, whether it's on even the contractor level work or legal representation. Because we all know that the easier it is for people to start doing things, the more activity there will be, right? Because AI is now so much more approachable, we're using more AI because it's easier for people to get started. And so that's I think a core principle that I really believe. And it's just kind of interesting to see how all of my education, my life experiences have kind of come back to this one spot for this company.
Correct. Correct. I mean, like Jobs once said, right? You can only connect the dots looking backwards. So I think that's exactly what's happening here, right? So, what's the intersection of tech here? So, how are you guys incorporating AI and tech in your workflows? And also, as a founder, how are you running your company? Are you actually using AI agents to run your companies? Are you using AI agents to reply to people, helping them out with workflows? Let's say let's say someone's looking for a house. Do they have like a chatbot integration? So, what are these kind of tools that you guys are building? Would love to know that.
Yeah, we're experimenting with a lot of things right now. From an internal perspective, day to day, I use AI like all the time. Like I use tools like Granola. I actually am creating a. I'm actually going to be, I guess, open sourcing my own personal tech stack. And what we do here in Rept. For other people to follow. So there are a bunch of tools like Perplexity Pro, ChatGPT. I use the Pro version. Um, all these things help me as an individual better understand the environment that I operate in and make better decisions and become more informed about what I do, right? In terms of what we're building out for consumers, uh, we've experimented with chatbots. I think overall, a lot of people talk about how chat is not a great interface, but it's right now still the best that anyone's devised so far, right? There's a reason why OpenAI, Anthropic, DeepSeek, Gemini, all these multi-billion-dollar companies with hundreds of thousands of millions of users, um, they're all using that same interface. But what we really want to do is the way I think about AI is it's for consumer perspective, it's more of a back-end tool, right? Like really what AI should do is make things feel like magic. And I think that's what the GPT-4o, as we mentioned earlier with image creation, that's what it feels like to people because it's something that in the past you would have to use a lot of manual processes to do, which then can be done in just a couple of seconds, if not minutes, minutes if not seconds. And what we're really trying to do is trying to build that magical feeling of people understanding, wow, okay, these problems I now have an environment and an ecosystem to get them answered and to get my problems fixed. And I think the way we look at a very dynamic, a very unpredictable world in real estate, the kind of problems that, so I've been working in the industry for over 8 years. We've done investing work, we've done contracting work, we've done renovations, we've done so many different things. And it could be as simple as like your neighbors are too loud and what can you do about it? To there's a termite infestation in my front yard. What should I do about it? There's just all sorts of things that can happen. And I think AI is a fantastic way to kind of get to that first step. But how do we incorporate the human in the loop? Because at at some point, someone needs to take responsibility for the results of those recommendations, right? And what we're doing right now is really we're building AI to augment individual users. So we have a small closed alpha that we have some users testing right now. Or basically, they're using it to ask random questions on that we've trained on our own proprietary database as well as some open world knowledge, just how to deal with some of these situations. Because at the end of the day, if your pipes break, right? If you are renting a place and the toilet is blocked and someone is supposed to come fix it, who pays? These are the kind of questions that a lot of people don't have a place to ask. And if they do ask, they'll get a whole range of answers. They don't really know how to think through the problem. And so that's kind of what we're really trying to solve, just individual personalized user questions.
Understood. Understood. Got it. So I think the whole, core of AI and chatbots, I really think is hyper personalization. Before, there were art which I could just consume. But now I can take all of that art what I could consume and make it hyper personalized only for me with my taste, with my logical sense for just me to consume, right? I think the same thing's going to also happen with everything in every domain art, money, of your interaction, human interaction, everything, right? So, another question is, I really want to dive deep into this. One question again is about trust itself. You already did, speak about trust, some portion of the podcast. But for a podcast, for like a startup that's in software or a SaaS or an agency, who are trying to incorporate AI, how can they build trust? I mean, for the ones who are just starting off, right? When you're starting off, you don't have a lot of people who know you. So where do you build trust there?
Yeah, I want to talk about one of my favorite tools. It's called Mac Whisper. So it's developed by one individual guy. He's on Twitter and he sells these. It's no different than a lot of the other SaaS tools that some people have been using for speech to text to basically make it faster to type. But what Mac Whisper does is it's one guy who publishes updates regularly. You pay on a one-time license, and there's no need to force in monetary extraction if it doesn't really add value, right? So I think if you want to build trust, you have to be on the side of the consumer. You build things that consumers like at a good price that they're willing to pay. And that might mean in the short term that you make less money and you have less MRR or ARR than some of your competitors. And I think if you want to, like, trust is not something that you can just bootstrap and scale like you can do with revenue, right? Like, if you want to build a brand, which is, I think, one of the most important assets of today, that intangible value. Like right now, I'm talking to you on a MacBook. I have an iPhone, and to be honest, I'm not even the biggest fan of Apple products, right? I wish they would let me do a lot more than what they currently allow me to do. But at the end of the day, because of the culture that Apple has developed amongst this enthusiast, this ecosystem, there's so many tools. Exactly, right? People want to get involved. They want to be engaged. They want to make apps like Mac Whisper, which let me use AI LLMs both locally on device as well as in the cloud to transcribe things. Like, this is just something super powerful that you cannot replace. Okay, because there's so many different tools that might have better individual features, specifically the one I'm looking for. But as a package, right? If you want to know, hey, where do I get started on shopping for a certain product or solution, right? You know where to look immediately. And so if you're trying to build trust, I think there's really no shortcuts. It's something that you start as soon as you can. You think about what's good for yourself and for others at the same time. And I really want to make that balance clear, right? Because a lot of people think, oh my God, in order to build that business, I have to have a lot of revenue. Or if I want to build a business, then I can't offer things too cheap. Like, I think it's okay. And I think consumers understand that the business needs to make business decisions, but that business also has to, consumers will make consumer decisions. So if you're really pro-consumer, you should not sacrifice anything from a consumership side perspective just to reach some short-term business goals. Because almost always in a more and more competitive software environment where people can switch tools on a whim, you're going to lose, right? People are going to lose trust in you. So yeah, I think trust is just something that you can't replicate with money, with anything else. And in fact, probably the more money you throw at something, the less trust people automatically give to you. So yeah, and so what we're doing at Unwrapped is, we're planning a series of events, community events, as well as just like hackathons, and we're building our own Discord server, and we're creating a list of tools that we use, like to tell people, hey, come join us, right? We don't have anything to hide. Come look at what we do, be a part of this journey, give us feedback, help us make our products better so that we can better serve you. And if you look at, Reddit or even Apple themselves, the reason why these companies are so successful is because there are people who spend their time for free to help you make your product better. So you should really treasure and value it, because otherwise, why would they do it for you, right? Like they know that you're looking out for them, so therefore they look out for you too. If you're thinking about housing, ultimately, you want to live in a community where neighbors are looking out for each other. And I think that is at the very core of the culture that we're trying to build.
So what would be your one piece of advice for anybody who is in this space? Because it's so rapidly evolving. There's so much happening. It's so hard to wrap your head around everything that's happening, right? I mean, there's a sense of FOMO. There's a sense of paranoia. There's a sense of, missing out on things. So what do you think? What's your advice on that?
Well, I was talking to some people the other day, and I genuinely think if you want a cool job, right? If you want a job that you feel like you're impactful, that is meaningful for the world, that is fixing something broken, the best way to get one of these jobs is just build your own company and then get acquired. Because there are so many problems that we know exist in this world today. Some of them are really large societal problems. Some of them are small local community problems. All of these problems require actual people to take initiative and take the effort to go do something about and fix. And I can tell you that some of my friends who are either hiring or are working at really high-paid, high-flying startups like Ramp, like Parkour, or just really companies that are growing really fast. They want to see individuals who understand how to fix problems and the thought process behind why is this a problem, who else thinks of it as a problem, and what is your solution for the problem, and why is your solution the best possible solution for the problem, right? It doesn't mean that you need to be perfect, but if you as an individual start this process of exploring people's problems and understanding how can someone, whether it's me or a big company or anybody else, go and fix it, that is a valuable skill. I think that will never go away, no matter what kind of tools that we have. Because we know that as much as we would love to have utopia, that is probably not a reality. And we need to work hard to try to make the world the one that we want to live in and not just pray that someone else will do something about it. And so that's something that I've always believed. And I think it's a very core of what we're trying to do. We saw this problem in real estate. I've been working in real estate for 8 years. For a very long time, I was that person sitting on the sidelines thinking, hey, someone should do something about this. And, one day I just thought, okay, you know what? Maybe I try. And it's thanks to tools like AI that helped me get started learning the journey and understanding how exactly, not just to build software products, but like how do you build things for scale? How do you build robust, secure, protected, scalable solutions rather than just, okay, I made something for myself that's helpful and it's cool. And so if you want to eventually work on one of these things, whether at a big company, at a small startup, or even for your own company, best way to do, just get started. There's really no excuses in the day of AI, in the age of AI, for why you can't do things. Like I very much believe, I think it's a bit of a Twitter meme, but I very much believe you can just do things. And you should, because our world needs people to do more. And we need people to do what they can. Like, you don't have to change the world at once. Start with something small. Start with a problem, just maybe your own life, in your family's life, in your school's life, in your work life, right? Start small and grow from there. Don't be phased by you're trying to make the next YouTube or whatever. You can start small. But if you want to go big, by all means, get started.
I think this was amazing, right? I mean, I'm definitely going to look at this podcast again, get these deeper insights, because these were like really good insights. And honestly, if I just rephrase your pointers, I'm just going to have like Twitter content for for the next 2 weeks. Uh, so this was super cool, Jiang, right?
Thank you for having me.
And on a personal note, I would love to connect with you. This was an amazing podcast, and I'd love to connect with you to see how I can help you out. If is there any possibility. Love what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing, and of course, we gotta be the ones who take charge and make the world a better place. We gotta do that, right? Yep. That's all for the podcast. And see you guys in the next.
Thank you so much for having me on.